to part two of my conversations with Miss Phylis Mack. In part one, she talked to us about her books, her writing, and how she has learned to rest in God's Word. Now, stay tuned to hear more from Miss Phylis Mack about how she handles rest in what is an increasingly busy world. So, Miss Phyllis, have you always practiced rest?
No.
I'm asking because I'm a work in progress myself. So that's why I was asking if you've always practiced rest.
Well, no. It took me a long time to realize that I was even allowed to rest.
Ah, can you
Yeah.
say more about that?
Okay. We get so caught up um, into where we feel like that we have to stay busy. If we're not, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Um, that if we don't stay busy, then we're not productive.
Mhm.
We're not being useful. We're letting somebody down
Mhm.
if we don't stay busy.
Yes.
With me, it got to the point where sometimes my plate would get so full that I wouldn't have joy in what I was doing.
Mhm.
And when you don't have joy in what you're doing, you got to stop. You
True.
have to stop and you have to rest. You have to think about it.
Mhm.
Why am I doing this?
Mhm.
Um, I think that this pandemic has really helped me
Mhm.
to say no. I've been asked to do things, I've been asked to go places, and as much as I miss being around people, I have to say no.
Mhm.
I can't do this time.
Yes. Yes.
That doesn't mean never, just
Yes.
like God. Sometimes he says no, not today, but
Yes.
he's not telling us never. And
Yes.
that's the same way I feel. But the
Yes.
pandemic has really slowed me down into thinking that it's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay. You don't have to be full with
Mhm.
busyness.
Mhm. Mhm.
You don't have to do that.
Yes. And that was going to be my next question about how, the pandemic has impacted how you rest, how you view time and work. And I think for a lot of people, the pandemic caused them to truly examine what it is that matters.
Yes.
What are the important things in our lives? And we don't want to be people that are busy all the time but getting nowhere. What
Right.
I mean by that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So did you have to deal I had to deal with fear at the beginning of
Yes.
the pandemic because this was new. I hadn't been this way before. Nobody understood what this thing was.
Hmm.
And it just changed. It changed our lives, and the concern about the future, what this means for us, how long we're going to be away from work and church and
Hmm.
all that. Did you have to deal with any of that?
Yes, I fear, especially when they said that people who have illnesses,
Hmm.
um, underlying illnesses, that they were more prone to catch the COVID. So
Hmm.
right there, you know me, I have some illnesses.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that was a fear. It was a fear for my doctor.
Hmm.
Since COVID started, I've been going through a lot of testing and a lot of not for COVID, but for other issues.
Hmm.
And it's been every 2 months I have to go.
Yeah.
And so it's been fearful. It's been fearful to even let my own children come around. Now I've eased up a little bit because their routines, they understand.
Hmm.
Their routines, they can't be around us
Hmm.
if their routines and they're all over the place.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they understand that, they respect it.
Hmm.
We wear the mask, even in our home. If they come over, we do the whole 9 yards,
Hmm.
and it's hard. It's very hard because I want to wrap my arms around and just kiss and love and
Yes.
all of that. But you have to pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pray about it. And that's what I do. I pray about it.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go out on certain occasions, and I do, but I'm cautious.
Mm-hmm.
God says, you know, he created doctors, he created people with the intelligence to tell us what to do, and he did that for our own protection.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been leery. I haven't been to our church.
Mm-hmm.
I do watch it
Mm-hmm.
because I need God in my life. I need that connection. I need to hear the word.
Yeah.
But I won't be, and this is not talking about, I've heard people say this, and it's not meant for my church, but I've heard people say this here, that they will not be blackmailed into going into a building to hear from God or to receive a message, because God is in us, you know. So we can go anywhere for that. So I agree with that statement, though. I am going to say that. I agree with that. I will not be spiritually blackmailed.
Yes.
Into feeling bad about not attending.
Yes. And I think some of the blackmail comes from us personally, having to struggle with, I've always been in church physically. And sometimes the guilt or, you know, or that self-doubt about, you know, am I making the right choice? And then sometimes it's coming from other people. But I think what the pandemic and the lockdown and the slowing down has taught us about church is that even after this is over, that the way we do church has changed.
Yes.
Because a lot of people started looking at, you know, God, what are you saying to me in this time? Is this the time to look out for my neighbor? Is this the time to write that devotional? Is this the time to reach out, you know, to the shut-in or the poor or the hungry, or, you know, so kind of, you know, I know that our pastor talks about us, about building us up, training us, and sending us out.
Yes.
And I think the pandemic just showed us that even when we think things will return back to the way they used to be, that we're going to be doing church differently, taking it outside the four walls.
Yes. I just wanted to say something about that. One of the things that I am doing is I am in a group that has people in Israel, it's called Zooming In on Israel, and it's about Jesus's life. So there's God is using different ways for us to minister. Like you said, you know, my neighbors, I have new neighbors and stuff, and they fell apart from their church, but we can minister. We can do Bible study together. So, you know, we can keep that belief and that faith going. And just like I said, you know, there's so many things that we can do outside of the church right now. We can't forget that our responsibility is to our church and to the shepherds that God has set before us. You know, we don't turn our backs on our church. Like you said, church is going to be different, and people are looking at church in a different way. So I totally agree with and I understand with what you're saying.
Yeah. Great. So let me ask you, going back to the whole concept of rest, can you share a time or two when God made a promise, or God made promises to you, but the time between the promise and the promise actually coming true was a long time, and you had to rest knowing that his word will come true? Can you share a time like that?
Yes. And you may even remember, there was a time where I lost a lot of family members at one time in a very short period.
I remember.
My heart was so broken, but it was my faith and God's promises that got me through. even now with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I've lost probably 4 friends to it.
Oh, wow. Sorry to hear
Yeah,
that, Miss Phyllis.
yeah. And it's hard. But you know what? God's got a plan, you know. Even when my family and my friends then died, he told me, he said, from the ashes will come the beauty. And I know there's a song about that, and I know, you know, all of that. But this was to me personally that he said that. And that's when Tyra came.
Yes.
And or not Tyra, Bot
Mm-hmm.
came. But yeah, that's really hard. But you know what? I believe in what he says. And when somebody said, well, he promised you, you said he promised that he would heal somebody. Well, he did. He gave them back their life. He healed their body when they went to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
But it took it. I waited. I waited on this earth to see it on the earth manifested.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't come.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that it came when they were in heaven.
Mm-hmm.
They were made whole.
Yes.
So sometimes we don't see physically with our eyes what's going to happen. So we have to see through God's eyes, and trust him, because he knows what's best.
Yes.
But yeah, that was the hardest time. It was a long time because it just never was stopping.
Yes.
It was just one after another, after another, after another. And that was my hardest time. That was, I think, one of the biggest tests outside of when my baby brother died of my faith. Yeah.
Yes.
When my baby brother died, I had done everything God had told me to do to help him. And I got a call to hurry up and go to another town where he was at, that he had had a massive heart attack. And I said, that's not true, because I've taken him up here and God said that he fixed his heart. He put in the machinery and all of that, and he's been doing really good. And I went there and I laid my head on my brother's chest, and there was no heartbeat. And so that was a big moment for me. At first, of course, I was angry. We do get angry.
Of course.
God, why? Why?
Yes.
And you know what? God doesn't have to explain to us.
Yes.
He doesn't owe us anything. That was just my brother for a time. But I know I'll see him again, just like the rest of my other family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Miss Phyllis, I can see the emotion, and we know the emotion doesn't negate what you're saying about your trust in God. Your heart is still tender when you remember those things.
Yes.
But your trust is still that God answered the prayers the way God answered.
Yes.
Answer that prayer.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. You know, it's easy to talk about faith when things are going well, everything is lining up in our lives, you know, the sun is shining all the time, you know, it's easy, but to choose faith, to choose to walk by faith and not by sight, not by what you see in front of you, is an exercise in our walk with God. It's something that we have to walk through to be able to learn. You know, what lessons he has for us. So thank you.
And that was like in Tyra, you know, when she lost her son. She, in a sense, was responsible for that because of her addiction.
Yes.
But she had to submit to God, to his power, so that she could walk through it and she could forgive herself. And that way she could have something, a remnant, to give to somebody else. She left something for somebody else so that they could believe that their troubles were not forever.
Yes, yes.
They trusted God.
Yes. I remember that scene. I remember ending that way. And I'm glad, you know, you've also talked about that, how, you know, when we have come through, when God has brought us through, we should remember to reach back to someone else and share. And that's the power in our testimonies, to share with others what God has done for us. so that it
Yes.
gives them the hope that they too can get through whatever it is they're going through.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So, Miss Phyllis, I want us to wrap up with this, and that is, what parting words would you share with our viewers? What are some things you want them to take away? What is God saying to you, or what are you learning in these times? Words of encouragement that you want to share with our viewers.
Words of encouragement. The biggest thing is that we can't give up. We have to push through.
Mhm.
We have to go deeper than what we've ever done before. And we can, in this here pandemic, it's not just the pandemic, it's everything that's associated with it.
Mhm.
I think that God is waking us up.
Mhm.
Just like, in the churches, he's waking us up and he's saying, you know what, this isn't working.
Mhm.
I've got all these rooms up here and they're ready, but you're not.
Mhm.
So we have to work on ourselves. We
Mhm.
have to love ourselves
Mhm.
in order to love our neighbors.
Good.
And these are commandments of God.
Mhm.
We need to be obedient.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hard. We're not all going to agree, but we can respect each other.
Mhm.
And we have to remember that whatever goes on in this world today, that's not our future.
Mhm.
That's not our future. We are heirs. So keep pressing, keep believing, and keep trusting in God.
Amen. Thank you. That's a good wrap up, Miss Phyllis. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, telling us about Tyra. Where can our viewers find your book?
Tyra, they can buy Tyra on Amazon.com.
Okay,
It's in paperback and it's also on Kindle.
great, great. And I'll put that link in the video as well,
Okay.
so that they remember. But you've blessed me this afternoon, and I'm sure that our viewers have been blessed as well. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate your time. So, friends, that is all we have for today. Leave your comments below the video after you watch, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button for future video notifications. And I look forward to seeing you all at our next Rest Stop Conversations.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.